Hi there, this is Harry and welcome back to my Advanced English Lessons with Harry, where we try to help you to get a better understanding of the English language, help you with your conversational English, your business English, preparation for those proficiency exams, or indeed even those job interviews. Whatever you need, we're here to help. So, what are we looking at today in this particular lesson? Well, in this advanced English lesson, we're looking at collocations to do with size, dimensions, and quantity. Now, some of them are a little bit tricky on the tongue for pronunciation, so we'll try and practice that at the same time. Any problems, you know the way we do it by now, you come back and you can ask me and we can go through it again. Okay, so let me go through. We've got 12 situations here that we can use in the examples. I'll read through them and then I'll come back and give you a situation when you can use them and what they mean. Okay, so let's start. So, a minuscule piece of cloth, a minuscule piece of cloth. So that's the first one, difficult to pronounce. Minuscule, minuscule. A mammoth task. Again, a little bit tricky. A mammoth task. A vast room. Not so tricky to pronounce, but you've got to get that V sound. A vast room. A gigantic wave. A gigantic wave. A gargantuan meal. Now this one's really difficult. Gargantuan meal. Even tricky for me. Gargantuan. Itsy-bitsy spider. And I'll tell you a little fairy tale about that. Itsy-bitsy spider. A tiny spot. A colossal sum. Dainty feet. Bulky luggage. Now this one, next one, again, tricky on the pronunciation. An infinitesimal dose. Infinitesimal. And then finally, a bit tricky because it sounds a dwarf cherry tree. You have to be really careful because sometimes they say a dwarf twowie twee. No, it's a dwarf cherry tree. Okay, so we're going to go back through them, explain, and give you a situation when you might use them. Okay, so a minuscule piece of cloth. Minuscule means really, really small, really, really tiny. So you might see somebody walking along the beach and they're almost naked because they've got a really, really small bikini on. It's a minuscule piece of cloth. Okay, minuscule, really, really small. Minuscule, like the size of a stamp. Minuscule. Next, a mammoth task. Mammoth, like the ancient elephants that lived at the time of the dinosaurs. They were called mammoths, yeah? So a mammoth task is a very large or very big task. So lots of these words have to do with size. So it could be something very small or something very big. So mammoth is very big, a large, large task, a lot of work to do, a mammoth task. Getting all of the emails up to date or transferring all the data from one system to another system turned out to be a mammoth task. It took several days and almost a week when we thought it might only take hours, a mammoth task. Next, a vast room. Again, this is about a large size, a vast room. So you've ever been to one of these old palaces that have been built, like the palace in Versailles. When you go into one of the dining rooms, they are huge. They stretch for many meters. So these would be described as a vast room, very large, a large expanse, a vast room. And make sure you pronounce the V sound, vast. Okay, a vast room. A ballroom could be a vast room. The parliamentary meeting rooms in government buildings can be a vast room. Next, we have a gigantic wave. Gigantic wave. Tsunamis produce gigantic waves that come onto the shore and destroy all the buildings in close proximity to the shore. Gigantic. Okay, get the pronunciation. Gigantic. Next, gargantuan. Now be really, really careful. Gargantuan. Gargantuan means really enormous, very, very large. Here we're talking about a gargantuan meal. So perhaps somebody is sitting down to one of these 12-course meals where they're going to test all the little courses that are available in the restaurant, and really by the end of the 6th or the 7th course, he's absolutely stuffed. A gargantuan meal, fit for a king. Now, itsy-bitsy spider, this means something really small, itsy-bitsy, okay? And it comes from an old nursery rhyme. Itsy-bitsy spider climbing up the spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain, and itsy-bitsy spider climbed up the drain again. Okay, so this is about itsy-bitsy spider, meaning something really, really small. Itsy-bitsy spider climbing up the spout or the drain outside the house. Itsy-bitsy. There's a song as well, an itsy-bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini. It was an itsy-bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini. Okay, so there's an old song, so ask somebody who can remember it. Itsy-bitsy, something really, really small. Itsy-bitsy teeny weeny, something really, really small. A tiny spot. Tiny means, again, really, really small. So you take your coat to the dry cleaners because you spilt some wine on it, or you think you did, but when you look at it, there's only a very, very small spot on the coat. You'd hardly notice it. You notice it because you know you spilt it, but nobody else can see it. Or if you prick your finger on a nail or a pin, you might get a tiny spot of blood. Oh, it's sore, but there's only a tiny spot of blood, something really, really small, almost impossible to see. A colossal sum. Well, colossal again means something really big. The Colosseum in Rome, really, really big. Colossal, giant, okay? A colossal sum of money. So if somebody wins the Euro Lotto of 122 million, people go, wow, that's a colossal sum of money. What could you possibly do with that? It's absolutely gross. I mean, it's really, really immoral to win so much money. Colossal sums of money won on the lotto. Dainty feet. Dainty is another word for neat and tidy and quite small. You couldn't describe my feet as dainty. My wife describes my feet in lots of ways, but dainty isn't one of them. Dainty, very small, very twee, very nice and neat and tidy. Somebody with a very neat waist or neat figure could have a dainty figure. So dainty feet. The shoe size could be quite small, 3 or 4, something like that. So they have dainty feet, good for dancing, dainty. Bulky luggage. Bulky means heavy, but also something that is not packed correctly, and there are lots of things sticking out, so it's a little bit bulky, okay? So if you don't pack your luggage correctly, then it can be bulky. If you have 4 or 5 suitcases, then it could be bulky because you just have lots and lots of things in it, not packed correctly, not packed neatly. So bulky. Bulky means big but awkward and difficult. So sometimes the luggage, even though it's heavy, it's easy to carry because it's neat and well packed. But if it's not so well packed and it's bulky and sticking out at different angles, then it's difficult to carry. Could you help me with this luggage? It's really bulky and it needs 2 people, one on one side and the other on the other side, bulky. And if you go to the airport, usually bulky luggage has to go in the special section for over large bags. So bulky items, bicycles or things like that have to go into a special section and you can't check them in the normal check-in desk. Bulky luggage. Next, this is the really difficult one. Now I'm going to try and pronounce it for you really slowly. Infinitesimal. Infinitesimal. And here we've got an infinitesimal dose of something, okay? Infinitesimal. Infinitesimal means so small that it's almost impossible to see it. Okay, so for example, if we're talking about energy, which lots of people are talking about these days, we might say that at the moment, solar panels or indeed wind turbines provide an infinitesimal amount of the necessary energy, meaning we use most of the energy because of through gas or oil or electricity, other ways, whereas wind and solar panels or these new or renewable sources provide currently an infinitesimal, something almost too small. Okay, so we have to increase or improve the level of energy we take through the sun and the wind and the ocean. Okay, but at the moment it might be described as very, very small or infinitesimal. Infinitesimal. Okay, so meaning very, very small. And then finally, we've got this tongue twister, a dwarf cherry tree. A dwarf cherry tree, not a dwarf twerry twee. Okay, dwarf as in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Hi-ho! Okay, the small little people that were in the fairy tale or the Disney cartoon. Okay, so a dwarf cherry tree is something really small that has a limited growth. Okay, so like these trees that the Japanese, the bonsai trees that they grow, they're dwarf trees and they only grow to a certain size and never any bigger. So dwarf, small. Okay, so we've got lots of these expressions, these collocations that are connected with dimensions, sizes and quantity. Okay, some of them meaning small or very small, some of them meaning big or very big. So let me go through them again. Minuscule piece of cloth, something really, really small. A mammoth task, something really, really big. A vast room, a huge room that spreads from left to right. A gigantic wave, a huge wave like a tsunami. A gargantuan meal, gargantuan, something fit for a king, a big feast covering the whole table. Itsy-bitsy spider, something really, really small. Itsy-bitsy spider climbing up the spout. A tiny spot, really, really small, something you can hardly see. A tiny spot of ink, a tiny spot of blood. A colossal sum, massive, massive sum of money that they won in the lotto. Dainty feet, small, neat, tidy. Dainty feet. Bulky luggage, big and awkward, difficult to carry. Bulky luggage. Infinitesimal dose, a really, really small dose. So the doctor would give an infinitesimal dose of medicine to try and cure somebody, not too much. And then the dwarf cherry tree, that limited in the size that it will grow, a dwarf cherry tree. Well, hopefully you can enjoy those particular collocations in this advanced English class. You'll probably have to listen to it a couple of times because those are really difficult, not only because of the meaning, but also in terms of the pronunciation. So pick a few of them, practice them. If you're going to practice the pronunciation, try practicing in front of the mirror, or indeed use your mobile phone. Record yourself, listen back, and see where you have to make changes and listen to my pronunciation as well. And if you need any further examples, you know the drill by now, come back to me and I'll help you. www.englishlessonviaskype.com. And as I always say to you, if you like this particular lesson, then please like the video, and also if you could subscribe to the channel because it really, really helps. Okay, this is Harry signing off until the next lesson. Thanks and goodbye.